that can't be attacked is your self-custody Bitcoin. And one of the things that can be attacked is the ETF. You can't be exposed to that. That's my view. It's not a good idea. And by the way, that'll hit MSTR too. It'll probably hit other stuff as well.
Friends and enemies, welcome back. Canadian Bitcoiners podcast.
Friends and enemies, welcome to the CBP. Wanna be better informed? Listen to Len and Joey. Sponsors taken care of right off the top. Bull Bitcoin and easy DNS. The media is feeding the slop. It doesn't matter what topics discussed. Quality entertainment and information you can trust.
That's being planned or at least discussed. You know, we're not going to allow
quality entertainment and information you can trust. Send the guy some value, boost them with some stats. Bitcoin is a scarcity asset. I mean, it's just a fact. Geopolitical, national, down to the local class.
Friends and enemies, welcome to another edition of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. I'm Len, and as you obviously are listening to my voice, that means Joey's not here because he is getting operation done to his knee. He blew out his knee not too long ago, and he was able to get under the knife, and he did that today. So hope all is well with him. I haven't talked to him since he went for surgery, but I'm not going to do this alone. I have two knees, and I want to make sure my co-host also has two knees. And with me, I have Dan from the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. How are you, Dan?
Good. How are you, Len?
Not too bad. This is your second time on the show in a matter of 2 weeks, I believe, a week and a half, give or take.
Yes, second time in a week, nearly, yeah.
Week. So hope you're not getting too much of us. We're not getting enough of you, obviously. That's why you're
not at all.
So no, it's awesome that you were able to step in for Joey because, as I said, you know, he's on the mend, but he should be back next week. And well, this week too, on Wednesday, I believe I have Nobody Caribou. That's Nick, and I'll be chatting with him, and we'll be discussing a few things. But that's beside the point. That's your schedule for the week. I want to just introduce you to our audience because people who are unaware of who you are, what you do, maybe you give us a little bit of rundown because, you know, I want to make sure people are aware who the heck is my co-host. I just want to introduce you to the CBP world. Maybe you could just give a quick presser of yourself. Go ahead.
Sure. My name's Dan, CBC. Dan, I'm founder of the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. Started back in 2022. I'm Irish, as probably most people can hear from my accent. I'm Irish Canadian, so I've got the passport and I've been here long enough so they can't throw me out. That's for sure. So, but yeah, I Bitcoiner since kind of 2017. Joey on the last podcast actually called me an OG, which I was really a bit bit weirded out a little bit. That's the first time that's happened, but I guess I don't know. But yeah, that's it. That's my background.
So people who are going to be attending the Canadian Bitcoin Conference or have any questions, I mean, you can pose those questions in the chat. Dan will hopefully be able to answer them. I'll try to direct them his way. But we'll talk about the Canadian Bitcoin Conference in just a moment. I want to just check off these things of my list of things to do. Sponsors, got a trio of them I got to read off right now. Easy DNS is our number one sponsor. Been with us for number of years. They are fabulous. Mark and his team, they are awesome at providing a shepherding in to become a net citizen, so to speak. So if you want to set up a web hosting, email hosting from scratch or migrate something over, they could do that. If you want to, well, sit on any domains, right? Like that's a very popular thing people do. They purchase domains and sit on them. They'll be happy to facilitate those buys for you. If you want to set up any, say, Nostr relays or even Bitcoin nodes remotely, they could do that. They have lots of different options over there. Check them out. They've been in this game for decades. This is plural. And they accept your Bitcoin if you want to pay with Bitcoin too. Check them out. Your first purchase, if you do a buy with them, it's going to be 50% off only if you use our promo code cbpmedia.com. Check them out, easydns.com. Sponsor number 2, Bull Bitcoin. If you're going to buy Bitcoin, you're going to sell Bitcoin. If you're in Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, a lot of different countries in Western Europe, use Bull Bitcoin. That's my suggestion. Non-custodial, Lightning, on-chain, a lot of different options. You could pay your bills. You could send Bitcoin to somebody and it becomes fiat. So if you want to pay somebody in Bitcoin, you can just do an on-chain transfer. Or if you want to pay somebody in fiat, you could use Bull Bitcoin to facilitate that. You could, through them, send them your Bitcoin and fiat ends up in your destination's account, their bank accounts. So check them out. They've been around for a number of different years because they, as I mentioned, non-custodial, they're private. They coin join your stuff and they send it over to you. Like, what the heck? That's great stuff. Open an account if you haven't done so yet. Use our code below, and it will make your buys a little bit cheaper moving forward. Third sponsor, I want you to talk about it because it's the Canadian Bitcoin Conference, Dan. Maybe you could give us a rundown of what the heck we'll be talking about with that.
Yeah, well, I'll read you what Joey emailed to me before
Ad lib it, man. Ad lib it.
Well, he says here, the premier Bitcoin conference held annually in the Great White North, where Bitcoiners come together to share stories, build momentum, and have a great time while doing so. Whether you're a pleb, business, newcomer, or OG, the Canadian Bitcoin Conference wants to see you in Montreal, October 16th to 18th, 2025. Don't miss this one. I'd agree with that. So I'll keep it at that. I don't need to add anything.
So Boom does have a question for you. He says, has he connected with PodConf to make sure the conference is compliant? That's kind of an inside joke. Have you heard of the PodConf crew?
I was introduced to it at the last my last appearance on the show, and I understand it now. I understand what it means. I think there's some people at the will be at the conference that will be PodConf approved. There will be some that won't. I don't know. I think we're gonna have to put in like an independent arbitrator that will see who's compliant or not. But I don't know what the requirements are. Maybe Boomdust can put up a list of requirements to be approved. So
to be honest, I think they're rather low. It's more just of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I think if they're going to exclude anybody, man, you really got to like, I don't know, you must have been a murderer or something in the past. You must have really pissed off somebody in a previous life, something like that. So, all right. I do want it to rhyme off some boosts because we got some boosts this past week in boostograms, and we'll make sure everybody gets their notes heard. So if you want to send us a note, the top 5 get read on this show. So here we go. Number 121 sats come from Owen, and he says, shit, now I got the FOMO. And I'm not sure if you got it last week or if you got it more so today, because we did have a little bit of a dip. Like my block clock is showing 110K USD. What does that mean? It means, well, Bitcoin's always on sale, at least in my opinion. So you're buying for the future, buy at today's price, which is always on sale. So the FOMO is always real. It's always live. Wartime, 133 sats. And he says custodial exchange. So Dan, what happened last week? I was talking about Bull Bitcoin being a non-custodial exchange, and I kind of slipped. It's non-custodial or something like that. And so, yeah, it definitely is a non-custodial.
Freudian slip.
It's like, yeah, they are like stuff is like custodial exchanges and non-custodial. So like Coinbase is a custodial exchange. You don't want to deal with them because you've heard of all the rug pulls that happened in the past. Einstein, Quadriga. Gosh, there's a big one that came recently. Whatever, fuck. If somebody's going to hold your Bitcoin, fuck, don't do that. You can store your own Bitcoin properly. You got your 12, your 24 words. You can do multi-sig. You could do the 25th word if you want. So many different options. Learn to, custodial your own fucking Bitcoin. Don't be a cock. All right. Bitcoin Jim, 1,000 sats. He says, keep up the good work, fellas. Yes, I agree. We will do that. Jer, 2,000 sats. Now we're getting up to some big ones. Great to have the band back together. Jer, it's only for one show. The band has been broken up yet again. So here I am playing second fiddle to Dan this week. And last but not least, we have Business Cat 5555 sats. Amped for this event. Is this the event for the Canadian Bitcoin Conference? I'd love to see if he's attending. So,
sorry?
How many people are going to be going to the Canadian Bitcoin Conference? What's the number you have capped?
Hopefully, well, it's capped at like 1,200 or so. That's what the venue's rated for. But hopefully this year 600 to 700, and we got a lot of good ticket sales out of the gate. So I think we're going to hit that.
So that's CanadianBitcoinConf.com.
Yeah.
Montreal, October 16, 17, 18. The big day is going to be the 17th. Is that right? That's typically where you have the most action taking place.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's that's where the big panels are. That's when, it's almost like going away for a weekend with the boys. It's Friday night. That's where people get together and make those connections, and then that's when the big parties are on the Friday night. Usually, I think by the Saturday, people are a little bit tired, or maybe they don't have as much energy if they've been there for a couple of days. So Friday's the big one.
It really depends on how high the price is. If it's near all time high, I think the energy is going to be at an all time high as well. And you've held that conference a couple of years ago in Toronto, and the price was not really that. So great conference, but I think people's opinion of what Bitcoin was it's changed to what it is now. At least a normie's opinion of it. My opinion hasn't changed one bit. I'm always going to keep buying, never selling.
Yeah.
Screw you all. This is my Bitcoin. Do you have a keynote speaker that you have announced yet or no?
We don't have one announced yet, but we have lots of really, really good good speakers for the conference. Like I think this year I'm really excited for Lawrence Lepard. He's been there the last few years. He's his book has performed really well. And it's an excellent book and so timely in terms of what we're kind of seeing. I mean, most I think one of the Caradzes posted something the other day about the M2 money supply is up in Canada.
Yeah,
I think it's 8% or something.
yeah.
And yeah, it's a timely book, and he's getting a lot of attention. So it's brilliant to have him, and he's one of those like amazing guys. So it's great to have him back. But yeah, we have some other people who I'm interested in seeing. I like seeing Tomer coming back. He was there the first year. He wasn't there last year. He couldn't make it. So this year, again, really cool guy. Um, Francis will be there, Brad
Mhm.
Mills, Steve Bradley, all the kind of local guys. Adam O'Brien will be talking a few times. Then we have a few other of the American side as well. We have likes of Jeff Walton, who is part of the strategy team, so he's coming, and I think probably a lot of the plebs and the Bitcoiners maybe aren't that keen to see him, but he really explains the Bitcoin strategy approach really well. I don't know if you saw he did a podcast recently with Danny Knowles from um,
Oh, that's what
what
Bitcoin did?
Bitcoin did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he explained it, amazingly. All the different products and what they're trying to do, and it's really interesting. So yeah, I'm excited to hear from him as well.
Straight Shooter poses the question: is plan to do one in Western Canada? I know there's the Bitcoin rodeo that goes on in Calgary roughly around July 1st.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Dave, we talked to Dave quite a lot, and no plans at this point. I think we'll see and then obviously learning Bitcoin happened in Vancouver a few weeks ago.
yes, yes.
So
So
I've talked to Tristan after that as well, and as far as I'm aware, it was an excellent event. And maybe there's some collaboration can be done because it's quite kind of different events that he's more on the grassroots side. We're kind of more general. So yeah, we'll see what happens. We'd like to go to Vancouver, but the other issue is space and venues. Venues are crazy expensive if once you go into Vancouver and even Toronto. Montreal is a bit cheaper, so it's not too bad.
he's saying yes, no conf at the Minnesota border. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Yeah. And if I could make a suggestion, you don't have to even reply to this or anything. No, Peter Todd, man, that guy does not deserve to be put on stage. That's my opinion. Do what you wish.
Yeah, it's
You don't have to say anything else. You can just leave it at that. Because that's putting you in a spot, and we can just leave it at that. It's just
it's not putting me in it's not putting me in a spot. I see what he posts online, and
okay.
I mean, like I yeah, obviously, and to be honest, the first year we had him, I kind of didn't. I did my research, and he's obviously a big part of the. He's an OG, and he's part of the developers, and we had him. The second year, I actually didn't want them, and he reached out to us, and he wanted to come because he's originally from Mississauga or somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. the thing is,
you don't have to say too much, just in case don't want to burn bridges too.
I'm not going to burn bridges. Like I try to be an open book as much as possible, but like if people want to see him, we're trying to be an open forum as well. No matter what his opinion is. But yeah, it's once you start censoring people, it's a slippery slope as well. So, but yeah, I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah. All right. I think we could just dive deep because there's a few stories that I want to talk about on the Bitcoin side of things. And the first story I want to discuss is there's this core versus not this drama seems to have taken a darker turn this past week. And it was revealed in a Twitter Spaces, X Spaces. Portland Hoddle was talking on stage, and give some background here. He's an employee of Marathon Digital Holdings, that very large Bitcoin mining company that does stuff not really under the table. They have that slipstream where you're able to do shit that's not broadcasted. So they have their own MO. Marathon Digital does, and so does Portland Hoddle as well. But anyways, he was saying in X Spaces that there is the potential to do a pseudo denial of service attack to NOTS users. And the attack would essentially make it that NOTS users would be pushing out more data than they would normally push out, and that would put a strain on the user's ISP. A lot of people have unlimited bandwidth, unlimited transactions they could do. Some people don't. That's the reality of it. But from what I gather, this type of attack is not specific to just NOTS, right? It's simply targeting NOTS that are on ClearNet. Those that are not hiding on Tor. And those clients, like all clients, they broadcast their identity, who they are. NOTS clients does that. Bitcoin Core clients do that. They all do that. So somebody is going out there and they can make a database of all the NOTS clients out there and a particular IP, and then have a list. And from there, they could use that and to take advantage of this list. So by doing that, they could then have those NOTS relays, those NOTS people, they're just send out more data than they normally would. So just make it more costly for them to have a node running. They're saying there's a way to stop this excessive data usage though. And if you're a NOTS user, you could do this under the GUI interface, under the options / and under the network tab. It's called the max upload target option. And from that, you could then limit how much information will be sent out from your node. And this is fine if you're running NOTS on Windows, Mac, or Linux. But if you're running on a variant like Start OS or Umbrel, from what I understand, those are pre-built OSs that you can include NOTS. In those systems, the Start OS and Umbrel, you don't have the ability to do the max upload targets. So you are then potentially at the mercy of these people if they want to attack you. Really, all this is childish play. That's the way I look at it. It's all childish. It's instead of explaining to people out there that there's an attack that could potentially be done in this manner and trying to fix it, they're using this as a method to potentially, they haven't yet done so, to potentially make it more difficult for NOTS runners out there. And the people are gloating about it, saying, look, we could do this. And to me, it's just a fucking joke. So people need to be aware that if you have limited internet resources, and if you do have that, you may want to consider including in your node configuration to change the listen to equal to, I think, to 0 in your Bitcoin config. If you do that, listen equals 0, then you are just simply going to be receiving, not sending stuff out. But either way, just do your own research in this. I just came across this just in my quick overview of this story. There are ways to prevent you from sending out data if indeed you do have limited internet resources. So I see this whole fucking thing, this whole drama. That's all it is. It's just fucking drama. It's two camps just going at it. And it's almost like I'm going to throw shit at you. You're going to throw shit at me. It's too bad considering what's at stake here. Bitcoin, it's trying to knock off the monetary system that's been established for centuries. And here we are, we're fighting over this. Like, it seems like bullshit. I'm not sure if you have any insight in this whole saga here.
No, I don't have a lot of insight. You're saying a lot of words there that are going right over my head. But I mean, when I was looking into and I did see it online, and I saw actually, I think it was Rob Hamilton from Anchor Watch. I think he got a little bit he got a hard time because he was laughing at it, and he was kind of playing along, I guess. But um, I mean, do you think this is Mara, or you think it's Portland Huddle, or who do you like? Do you think there's a bigger issue here?
I don't know if there's one particular entity that's trying to spearhead this or just a particular camp, because the core camp, they seem to have this idea where they want to push out this idea where you're able to store data on the blockchain. And if you go back to the beginning, to the op return when that first came out, it wasn't the intention of storing data on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a terrible way of storing data. You can do it. Historically, you can do it, but it doesn't make sense to do it. It's very costly. It's not the most efficient. There are better ways to do it. What Bitcoin is just a monetary system that it's really just tokens that there's a limited amount out there that you could trade it. I could send it to you. You could send it to me. We could verify it. So Core's idea that they want to make this more of a database. That's the thing. That's the way I'm looking at it. There's not one particular person, not one particular entity. It seems like it's a group effort, but maybe somebody could be funding it. I don't know. Marathon did do a donation to Core not too long ago. I think it was a 5 or 6 figures donation. So there was some money that was sent over from Marathon to the Core people. What was the rationale for that? I'll be honest, I even donated in the past to Core. Yeah. So, does that make me a bad person, the bad judge of character? I'm not going to do it any further, but at the time I thought it was the right thing to do. And maybe Marathon thinks it's the right thing to do right then for them. So I don't know. I'm just looking at this. It's just like these two camps that just each have their own ideas.
But is there
financial system versus a database?
Yeah, but is there a financial benefit for Mara for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're storing data in it, then it becomes, you're storing more shit. You're filling blocks, and they're getting all the fees that are associated with that.
Yeah.
So through that lens, they want to see this because it would be advantageous for them as a business to have it done like that. In the short term, one can make an argument, is this good for Bitcoin in the long run? And if not, then Marathon potentially is just shooting themselves in the foot. So it really is like, is this the right course of action? Should they be doing this? I'd argue no, but more than anything, I just look at this story here. I look at what's going on, and it's a lot of just people that are just yelling at clouds, kind of speak. There is like some validity to what we're doing, but people are just upset for the sake of being upset sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, like we should just get together. We're Bitcoiners. Let's just fucking hammer this out. Let's not do these fucking denial of service attacks. Let's fucking deal with the issue here. We have a common enemy. That's central banks and shit like that. Not us. Like, we shouldn't be doing an infight. We should be like collectively one unit. And it pisses me off when I see this.
The only thing I think from an individual or a business perspective is if there's financial benefit for them to do this, to stay alive, or not to stay alive, but to maximize their profits and push their business further. I don't think the long term they're thinking about the benefit of Bitcoin as a monetary store of value, and a network. But I don't know.
Yeah, it just, if it's not in the long run, it's not good. Sorry, if one can make an argument, it's not good for the long run of Bitcoin, then it's not good for the long run of their business. Their business is 100% tied, or a lot of it is tied to Bitcoin itself. They could pivot to AI and shit like that, but the reality is I'm not sure it's going to be as lucrative, or at least it doesn't give them an option in case like Bitcoin isn't doing that well. When you have AI as a fallback, when the price of Bitcoin tanks, then you have something else you could divert your power to. But if you don't have that something else to fall back, you're basically hitching your wagon to one horse. And if that horse doesn't keep running, you're fucked. And as an investor, I wouldn't be happy with this.
But I think AI Mara are starting to pivot into AI.
They are
at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. As a Bitcoin miner, you have the ability to quickly move not the hash rate, the power that you're using
Yeah,
from
computing
one
power.
system to So it makes sense. So whatever's more lucrative, they should do it. But having Bitcoin as an option is a nice
and
fallback, or at least sorry.
Yeah, well, from what my understanding was that with the explosion of AI and AI data centers and processing power, they are going to run AI, processing during the day maybe, and then run Bitcoin mining at night. And when it's kind of off peak, or when to flatten the curve of processing power, and make themselves more, or and it's all about, for those miners, it's maximizing efficiency.
Yeah, and profits, right? Because those two, they mostly go hand in hand, but ultimately it's profits, because they're not in this for giving away money. They're not
Handouts,
charities,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on. Story I found to be interesting. I'm not sure if you saw this Jack Dorsey proto rig that came out not too long ago. And for people wondering what the fuck is a proto rig, I'll give some background here. It's a modular Bitcoin miner, and this is being developed by Block. And what is this then? We have an American firm getting into Bitcoin mining. Interesting, because not too long ago, we had Intel try to do this. They gave up. But imagine if they didn't. And if they did stick with it, Intel did stick with it. And now with the US government owning 10% of the company, it would make for a very fun what if. But enough about Intel. We'll talk about them later. Back to the Block proto rig. And I mentioned, like, this is a modular Bitcoin miner, which means that when you upgrade equipment with it, when you upgrade the unit, the upgrades will then potentially cost less, and there's less waste alongside with it. So right now, when you upgrade a unit, you basically have to take the old one out, put a new one in, and the old one is, you either got to scrap or you got to sell, do something with it. But there's no pieces you're reusing. In this modular unit, you are reusing pieces, but the pieces that typically get upgraded is the most costly part. It's the hash boards. The stuff like the housing unit, the control board, those I presume are going to be reused. They generally don't cost much in the end of the cost of the ASIC unit. But either way, this initiative, I like it. I like the fact that you're trying a modular design. I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to see options. I want to see people have the ability to try something and see if it works and it doesn't work. Block suggests that their proto rigs will deliver 1.5 times the power per foot of rack space compared to traditional mining hardware. So that means it's going to be using less space to provide the same hash rate, or using the same space to provide more hash rate. Interesting. I wonder, though, with this, how are they going to deal with the heat that's generated? Because you're now using a smaller footprint, and ASICs, they generate tons of heat. Somehow you have to deal with that heat. I'm wondering how this is going to deal with it. Now, people want to know what are the specs. 14.1 joules per terahash. Each unit is going to be around 800 terahash per second, 12,000 watts of electricity. These are very beefy units. They're very interesting. They compare to the S21 XPs by Bitmain. Those are around 13.5 terahash. So the S21 is a little bit more efficient. But let's remember that Bitmain, they've been in this business for a long time, so they've had a head start. Block is now getting in, and now they're able to produce this unit, which is comparable to that. I find that very interesting, very good. A little skeptical, though, because I want to see, ultimately, when the product lands in people's hands, what are the real life statistics? Because they could be much different than what's being published. And I want to see what people say in real life. Plus, the scale at which they could produce this. This is the big thing. Mining companies out there, they are hungry for units. They want hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more. So is Block able to scale production out to continually feed these hungry operations that need a lot of equipment? Let's see. Either way, I'm cheering for this. Why? Because we need competition in this field. Also, more than specifically, we need American designed equipment and hopefully American produced equipment. I'm not sure if this is going to be produced on American soil, but I do like this. Skeptical, cheering for it. I'm not sure if you have any flavor on this, anything that you want to talk about.
Yeah, like I love Jack Dorsey. We tried to get him actually to the conference this year, but I
Oh,
think he's tied up. But he, the feedback we got was that we need to be more Noster focused or more developer focused than just a regular Bitcoin conference. So I don't think he was planning to make it. But yeah, to from so these are open source as well. Does this mean that anybody can take the designs and reproduce them?
I don't know if the actual ASICs are open source. I know that the software to run the fleet, that is
Yeah,
open
okay. Fleet
source.
management software. Yeah. So they yeah, and that's kind of I love the intent of this where again it's coming down to that efficiency and they have, the software is uh you know brings together power scaling, monitoring, diagnostics, and maintenance tools in a single platform. Intuitive program platform. Sorry, but yeah, I'm sure the existing mining operations have one platform for all their you know um, uh, you know dials and all the efficiencies and all that stuff online. But yeah, this I think Jack Dorsey always seems to have his heart in the right place from what I can see, and he's really trying to push mining forward. And if this decentralizes it a bit, I think it'll help a lot too. And the other thing is, I was thinking, they've this now changed it from it used to be mining rigs were a 3 to 5 year disposable asset. Now it goes into a 10-year infrastructure asset. So does that help with the cycling or the 4 year cycles where miners would sell a lot of their assets or have to deleverage and then to upgrade their miners? Does that kind of help with that cycle? I hope so. I think so.
Yeah, there'd be less waste, to be less shit to deal with down the road, and to make it easier to operate the business. The one thing that might be concerning to me, I was just thinking about it, because what happened with Intel, and we'll talk about Intel more in depth later on, where now the US owns 10% of the stake of Intel. I do want these operations to be set up on American soil, but I'm wondering if that leads to the potential for the US government kind of getting their way in and getting a little bit of percentage of that. Then do you want the US government to be owning one of these companies that are producing Bitcoin mining equipment? It's just more food for thought. I don't know if it's ever going to become to this type of reality, but if it does, that is probably going in the wrong direction, right? I mean, would you agree? Do you want to see US anywhere near mining whatsoever, or even ownership of a company? Is it's possible? I just something I'm wondering, like, just more than anything, is it's
Yeah,
it's
I
scary time
mean,
to be alive, when you see the government get involved with the ownership of companies.
what's your concern with that? They start to um
Who
uh,
knows? I don't want them owning Intel. I don't want them owning anybody. This is not capitalism, right? Capitalism is you let the market work on its own without any intervention whatsoever. And this is now you're getting involved, heavily involved. So I don't want
but
government
I mean they're already heavily involved. I'm
in.
sure they're already had like they provide funding to a lot of these companies. I'm sure they trade stocks on a lot of these companies. Like they know for the big ones, they know, what the movers and shakers are anyway.
And Boomness is saying, if you're worried that the U.S. government getting their beak wet, you should be terrified of what China is doing with the status quo. Right, China is basically the shining light as to why it is you should be worried about such a thing. And that's why I'm looking at what's going on there. It's like with the United States doing this, this is obviously a step in the wrong direction. And whatever. Well, I mean, I want to talk more about Intel later on. I don't want to blow my load just yet. We could talk about something else. And there was another story that came up this past week in Ethiopia. We don't talk about Ethiopia a heck of a lot on this show, but periodically we do, because Ethiopia and Bitcoin mining tend to, well, there has been a connection between the two for some time. And I'll give some backstory. The country of Ethiopia intended to start Bitcoin mining not too long ago, and they were leveraging electricity that was generated by a recently built dam. It was called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. And it was a massive dam that was producing a lot of electricity that far exceeded the demands of the country. So they had excess electricity. What did they do with this excess electricity? Well, they used it to mine Bitcoin. And they had set up deals with numerous Bitcoin mining companies, and deals were signed and mining operations were established. And, it just seemed to work, right? And this all transpired in the last 2 to 3 years. Now, let's fast forward to today. And so news came out in the past week or two. They plan to wind down the Bitcoin mining due to the energy consumption that is required by these mining operations. They say that no further mining contracts will be signed, and the country also intends to discontinue existing agreements. Essentially, it's a mining rug pull. And this is the risk with Bitcoin mining when you're entering into a new jurisdiction. You got to have a friendly relationship with the government, because if you don't, well, the government, they could just yank the approvals and, well, your operations are no longer running. Bitcoin mining in the country of Ethiopia earned them 220 million USD over the last year. I hope they find a way to offset this lost revenue moving forward, because obviously it's going to has to come from somewhere. And funny enough, the country of Ethiopia, they had a mining ban operation that was in place since 2022. And they also have a ban on domestic Bitcoin trading since then. So they haven't been all that favorable towards Bitcoin trading, Bitcoin mining on a private scale, on a smaller scale. It was basically the government wanted their hands in that. So as per law, the Ethiopian birr, love the fucking name, the Ethiopian birr, is the country's only legal tender. And they say all financial transactions must be conducted in it, not in Bitcoin, fucking the birr. So this latest shift in Bitcoin mining sucks, but whatever. I can say to them, have fun staying poor, and the Ethiopian birr could just go fucking birr. Fuck them. Any thoughts?
No thoughts. I mean, they obviously a country like that, I mean, they don't want Bitcoin taking growing in the country. I'm sure they want to keep the US dollar and keep the Ethiopian birr as long as possible and kick the can down the road. But I'm not sure. Do you think it's a monetary thing, or do you think it's maybe like, I'm thinking from an energy perspective, yeah, if you've planned a dam and it's providing energy to Bitcoin mining, but now discover that industry or growth or housing starts to take over as a demand, then you have to wind down Bitcoin operations. So, do you think it's
No.
do you think
The
it's
reason why I don't think
no?
that's the case, the dam was set up in the past 2 to 3 years, and Bitcoin
Yeah.
mining was taking a third of that electricity. So somehow they would have to have doubled their consumption to match what that. I don't see that happening in that short a period of time. It's possible, but I can't see industry being developed that quickly. Now, Mixed Picks is saying in the chat, is the IMF involved? Nothing officially that I've seen, but that brings it's a very interesting point,
Yeah,
because
it,
maybe
it,
they
it is a
are
good
come out.
point. Because surely,
Yeah.
like you said, if you're making 220 million a year from this USD, and I'm sure they like to see the USD coming into the country, they there's a backhand play where the IMF go, okay, we'll give you 250 million if you just quit Bitcoin mining.
So Boom Dust is saying that the Singapore birr is something we should make the official currency of the CBP. Now, I have the Singapore dollar here as this is the unofficial currency of the show, and yeah, we could do it. We can make the birr. If somebody wants to send it over to me, I'd love to see it. But Mixed Pix is saying that he just asked AI, and they do get some IMF love. That makes a lot of sense. They are a developing nation. I would imagine just about every developing nation is on the IMF books. But yeah,
some money hungry dictator.
maybe. I don't want to get into that. Maybe you should invite somebody from Ethiopia to come over to the conference and talk about the birr and why that's a better fucking currency than fucking Bitcoin. That'd be a good
Funny.
discussion.
Yeah, when I don't know if you were going to talk about Melee and Argentina, but before before the show, I was looking just at the Argentinian peso, and it's gone to shit. It's just it's like a ski slope all the way down the bottom.
Well, which iteration of the peso we talking about? Because that's failed how many times this century?
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 times? I don't know. And yet Bitcoin is a fucking problem, right? You look at this thing's scarcity. You could track where it is. You could guarantee that you have ownership. But fuck the Argentinian peso. Oh, that's the fucking whatever.
I make a point, but I think everybody's got their orange pilling stories, but my orange pilling story is I get on Google and I show people the decline of their local currency usually, and you look at Turkey, you look at South Africa, you look at Argentina, you look at Egypt, those are and they're even the Russian ruble I think hasn't been great in the last little while, but you look at all those currencies and it's like a ski slope over 5, 10, 20 years. And it's an easy one. And I remember I worked with a guy from South Africa and you're trying to explain Bitcoin to him. And then you kind of go on, okay, you put USD to, I can't remember what the currency is in South Africa, but
it's the South African rand.
Rand, yeah. And it's a clear picture. And they know it themselves, but it just needs to be spelled out a little bit.
You do a lot of traveling through the world, right? Because of your fiat mining gig. So
yeah.
And so when you talk to people, and especially in the last few years, since not just, COVID more than anything accelerated everything, but even leading up to it, a lot of these currencies were just on the way to zero. Just chatting with them, just briefly, people must be talking about their lives being much more difficult nowadays than it was in a few years ago. And it's not like they have to really look back to the 90s. It's just in the past 5 years, things have really gotten bad in a lot of these countries that you're traveling. Like they must be talking just openly, like this thing fucking sucks, right?
Yeah, they one place I know for sure, even more recently, where I've talked to people is Turkey. Turkey, their currency. I remember I do some work with some people, designers and things across the world, and they're designers, and you'd be talking to them 1 month, and they would say, well, they have to change jobs every kind of 2-3 months because the currency's devaluing so quickly. It's better for them to go somewhere else, and other companies are offering more attractive salaries, and it's within like 3 months, and there's a lot of volatility there. And they all want, they want stronger currencies, like they want to be paid in pounds, and they're all starting to work online and work for American or European countries that don't have devaluing currencies. And yeah, it's kind of the same. You go to like Egypt and they don't want I just for a laugh, sometimes I'll go and I'll try to pay and that there's the Egyptian pound, and you'll try to pay in their own currency, and they laugh at you, like they're like, no, we want dollars. Like that's the sad thing. So most people know, they just, and when you try to show them Bitcoin, and they kind of, but some people have tried it, but it's almost like they try it and then they kind of just, it dies off, or they fail, or they don't go down the rabbit hole like some other people.
And it's almost seemingly overnight it happened with the Egyptian pound. I know there's a few events, but and that in Libya is another one where just, because of decisions by the central bank, if you had money, an excessive amount of savings in the bank, gone, just like that, wiped out. If you didn't have exposure to a different currency that quote unquote held its value, like the US dollar, and even the US dollar is getting wrecked over time, you had no chance. And it's sad. There's people all through the world that are suffering through this, but let's talk about a couple of guys that aren't suffering, and it's the Winklevoss twins. And I want to bring this up, and this might be a sign that we're at the top, right? Because why? Gemini Trust Company, that's the company that the twins are dealing with, they plan to go and file for an IPO. They're doing the process right now. Gemini, what are they? They say they are, quote, a cryptocurrency and exchange and bank. That's what they claim to be. And so really with this IPO, the way I look at it is they need exit liquidity. And they're hoping that you, the investor, will be that. And I really thought a few years ago, back in 2022, when the whole DeFi bubble burst, I thought Gemini was going to go down too at that time. For whatever reason, got to give them credit. They kept their ship from sinking. But for those out there, they're like, okay, this is a potential win. We're going to get the IPO, I'll get it as soon as it comes out. These guys, they offer up Bitcoin, shitcoins. They have something called Active Trader Platform. That's for experienced traders. This is all just trash. And they say they have these real-time charts, order books, all this bullshit. And they also provide custodial services for Bitcoin, just the same way Coinbase does and Fidelity does for larger corporations, larger companies. And even that, Gemini says they have their own stablecoin. Never fucking heard of it before. The GUSD, the Gemini dollar. Anyways, they also have staking. You know what a scam that is. Gemini credit card, Gemini wallet. This thing is just, it reminds me of just a huge fucking scam. And if you want to buy it, good fucking luck. GEMI is going to be the ticker. Oh, by the way, the first half of 2025, they lost almost $300 million. Why would anyone want to buy into this business? I'm telling you, these guys, they want exit liquidity. That's what this is. Yeah. It's a sign that we're at the fucking top. That's what this is. We are at the fucking top. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked up how much Bitcoin they have. It looks like they have 77,000 Bitcoin from a quick Google search, or 70,000, which is what, about 7 billion. I mean, exit liquidity. That's I think these
That's the
guys
way I
are
look
just
at
greedy.
it.
Yeah, they're. I mean, and yeah, I see a few articles there about XRP, and they're working with the founders of XRP, and I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot of shitcoinery. Too much
It
for me.
is. It really is. So I would stay away from it because it's absolute trash. But people out there, they want to get involved. The only one that I think that did really well, Circle. I'm not sure if you followed that IPO, but as soon as it IPO'd, and they have their own stable coin, the USDC, US dollar circle or something, I guess it's called USDC. And that's the only one I believe that has the blessing of the US government. So when Circle went public, CRCL, I think is the ticker on NASDAQ, it went bonkers. I think it almost doubled within like a week or two of their IPO. And still, even after a couple of months after, I think it's above what the IPO price was. That's the only one that I know that's done well in this. Generally, when there's an IPO, it's just like, I would, I'd recommend stay away from it. I'd recommend to stay away from all fucking this. Just buy Bitcoin and sleep well at night. But I know there's people out there, they want to do something with their RSP, TFSA, 401ks, shit like that. All the more power to you, but you're going to get wrecked in the end. You never get access to it. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, and the only one that seems to be, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, it's just those are just my thoughts. That's all. Go ahead.
No, I agree. It's not really, it's not for me. And usually there's someone in before you that has more information than you, and like you say, you're their exit liquidity. So
yeah. That Bitcoin that you said that they have, I'm wondering how much of that is customers. Like, that's not Bitcoin they own, right? That's actually like what they have under custodial services, what customers purchase and left on the exchange. That's probably what that number equates to. Am I right?
No, I think that's personal. So in 2013, they reportedly purchased around 70,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fuck them. I'm not gonna. All right, last story. The Bank of International Settlements. We could talk about this interesting story. The BIS, they're part of the Fiat Three Stooges, along with the IMF and the World Bank. And the BIS, they recently proposed a new thing that they wanted to deal with anti-money laundering and also KYC, know your customer. So they want to have compliance with that. And they want this in the world of cryptocurrencies and specifically non-custodial wallets. So you got to think, right? BIS, right? They're the central banks are in this club here, like the Federal Reserve, European Central Bank. Like, it's a very tight-knit group here that they want to make sure that they keep the power. So typically AML and KYC, these KYC rules, they are applied to banks and other centralized financial companies. And those rules, they require them, the banks and so forth, to know their customers and to report on any suspicious activities. But something like a non-custodial wallet, where you know, or myself, I'm the user, I have full control, you have full control of your funds, you can do whatever you want, that falls outside that KYC AML system. There's no centralized entity over there to regulate. It's difficult for authorities to track. And if there's any illegal transactions or money laundering, it will happen. And it's very difficult to identify and stop that. The BIS, they propose a new self KYC system. So instead of forcing you to give up your information to a company, the system itself would create a compliance score for each cryptocurrency unit or wallet. So the score will be based on a wallet's transaction history. So if your digital money, like Bitcoin, comes from wallets that have already been identified through a KYC process, then your score would be high. But if your Bitcoin comes from an unknown or a flagged wallet, your score would be low. And the goal for this is for everybody to basically deal with a system that is involved with clean money. It's easier to identify. And they want to make it so when you're converting Bitcoin to regular money, these off ramps, you have to have a high compliance score. Good fucking luck. I like how they're trying to do this now. It's like it's the end game of fiat, and they're trying to put this bullshit on us. Fuck off.
But they already put that bullshit on it. That you go to any other country, you go to, I know, Revolut in the UK, and you try to buy Bitcoin and then take it out from there, and you know it's a bad place to buy large amounts of Bitcoin and you know try to move it into cold storage. But they ask you the stupidest questions, and they have to do that because the regulators in the UK have told them, we'll not give you a license until you put all these barriers in place, make sure people aren't being defrauded. It's like about 30 questions to say, are you sure, is anybody forcing you, all this sort of bullshit. And it happens in every country. You've probably seen them,
Oh yeah. So the thing is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is another social credit score or CBDC or whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's what it is. And funny, when I was reading through that article before, and I was like, who's involved in this? And when you look at the BIS and who they are the central bank of central banks apparently, and they are governed by three names that came up is Mario Draghi, Jerome Powell, and Christine Lagarde, and that's they're making the decisions. They're the governors for the BIS, but also there's another guy involved that's closely associated as Mark Carney.
I
so
did not know.
he was. Yeah, there's an organization called the FSB, which stands for Financial Stability Board, and they're like an adjacent body to the BIS, and he was head of that in between. He was appointed chairman of the Financial Stability Board in November 2011 for a 3-year term. So I mean, like my predecessor or my connection, George Carlin, says, it's a big club and you ain't fucking in
it. 100%. And that's what we're dealing with. And even what MixPix is saying in the chat, system of control. Now, what I would suggest too is the type of control they're trying to impose is when you're moving from Bitcoin to fiat. If you're not doing that, if you're staying from Bitcoin to Bitcoin, there's no way to impose this type of pressure, this type of control. So, for example, if I send you Bitcoin, and now to do that, you'd have to have a big heart. There's nothing that could stop that. There's nothing that they could do. But if you were to sell me a service or a good and I pay you in Bitcoin, then I can see how they would say, okay, let's try to stop this. But really, they have no authority. There's nothing they could do. So like they're trying to impose these fiat rules, these fiat regulations in a Bitcoin world, which doesn't quite work. And another thing too is this whole AML stuff, and fiat is fucking riddled with it. Like fucking banks get fined all the time because they're not compliant with AML. And then yet Bitcoin is the one that's dealing with the underground economy and all. Like, fuck that. Like, the reality is fiat is far more involved in terms of overall numbers, like in overall value that's involved in crime and dealing with shadiness, way more than Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is just, it's a fraction of it. I'm not going to say that there's no people aren't buying drugs and shit like that with Bitcoin. People, for sure that people are doing that, but cash is being used way more for shit like this, for buying guns, for buying weapons, for fuck, man. Like these guys, it's like they're trying to paint Bitcoin as the enemy, but they're the ones that created the fucking problem and they can't solve it. And now they're trying to use that same system that doesn't solve their problems and apply it to Bitcoin. Like, come on, get the fuck out of here. I have nothing else to say about this shit.
Yeah, no, I know, and that's when you see those guys that are involved, Draghi, Jerome Powell, and Christine Lagarde. I mean, that's the mafia of
Draghi was the
the
former
banking world.
prime minister of Italy. He came in to technocrat because it was an absolute fucking disaster, and it still is. But yeah,
But it's funny when
you
start digging into like this web of IMF and Goldman Sachs and you kind of start and even decision makers in the European Union and even America as well, and it's like this incestuous club of like, okay, you were here and now you're going here and now you're going here, and just move over and take over this and we'll do what we did before. It's so it's just awful. But
And Boomdust is saying that Europe isn't doing so well. Capital controls incoming. And given your connection to Europe, you're right now in Ireland, part of the EU. I mean, do you have any thoughts on this comment from Boomdust?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Europe isn't doing so well, but I mean, there's other countries that aren't doing so well either. I don't think it's just the same as Europe. I mean, Canada is is going to have a hard road ahead in the next number of years. But yeah, it's well publicized, I think, in Europe that the immigration problem, inflation problems, currency problems, uh, unemployment problems, all these types of things, and even before the and you and I talked about this a little bit, but there was pension problems a few years ago where they had to pinch out or be out be out the pension funds, when they were like hours away from pension funds collapsing and this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, like it's slowly, slowly just it's called death by a thousand cuts, and it is like it's death by it's just every day at a time, and I think Jordan Peterson, one time I was listening to him and he said, they push and push and push you back, an inch at a time, and next thing you know, you're a mile away, and that's
Yeah.
true.
I fucking
And
memory
actually,
hold that whole pension fiasco. You're right, when they build them out like the 11th hour. That happened just a few years ago. And
yeah,
I totally forgot about that. That was going to be a fucking disaster. It
and
is a
and
fucking disaster.
it is a disaster, but everyone knew it was coming, and they threw Liz Truss, if you remember her, she was the prime minister at the time, and they
For about a
threw her
month.
under the bus, and we're like, yeah, for about a month. And this other guy who was the finance minister, I can't remember what his name was. It wasn't Lammy, it was somebody else, but it was the perfect scapegoat. It was a female prime minister, and I think her finance minister was a black guy, and they were like, okay, we'll throw these people under the bus, this is time to do it. And she got the blame, but I mean, this has been, it wasn't her at all. Like, she was that had been
Right.
brewing
She
for a
was there
long time.
for a minute. Didn't even warmed the seat up. I mean, she was
Yeah,
part of a party that created the problem, but not her direct actions. So, anyways,
yeah.
I think
No,
that's it for the
and
big. Oh, sorry.
no, I was gonna say it's so common. I listened to Peter McCormack there last couple of days, and he's he's moved on from Bitcoin now, and he's trying to do something in his town of Bedford, and
Yeah.
it's just the towns are dying, and but you can see some of it in Canadian towns as well, where you got tent cities and you get high drug use and all of those kind of social problems. So I mean, it's not immune to just Europe.
No, Peter McCormack's on the warpath these days. He's pissed off about the regulations and red tape and bureaucracy you deal with on a local level because, well, And just not
But
too long ago, he was very fond of the government. Now he seems to have changed his tune because now
yeah,
he's
you're right, and some things I kind of think that I take his opinion with a bit of salt, but he's totally right. Things are overregulated. I was, even you go to build a house in Ontario, and you have to get 20 something reports before you can build a house in, environmental. Like that's red tape coming out the yin yang. Like it's too
yeah,
much.
fucking right. All right, that's it for the Bitcoin side. We'll use this as a jumping point to go to the rest of the stories. For people are listening, we'll be back tomorrow. For people watching, there's no change. We just transition over. So uh, don't leave, Dan, because we're just going to stay on. But with that, do you have any last words for the Bitcoin side?
No, thanks very much for watching, everybody, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit.
And don't be a cuck. So